like you said, my name's Zach Hawther. I'm a closing attorney here in town. One of the big clients that he just mentioned is actually one of my good friends. I don't think he's here tonight, but he, like you said, he's grown his network through the Bigger Pockets podcast, and he's got guys that are coming closing with us all the time, and from anywhere from in India, they're working at Google on the West Coast, and they're just buying properties here in Atlanta. So one of the things that I take pride in is trying to make the closing process as smooth as it can be, because I mean everybody here knows when you're trying to invest in something, the closing process can be a pretty big pain in the ass if it's not run like a well-oiled machine. And so that's what we try to do. So I mean, I want to do business with you guys. Hopefully y'all stop by and grab a card. Hopefully that tab will stay open for a little longer so everybody can get a couple more drinks. And I also wanted to mention that, so we have 8 offices around Atlanta. So I know there's 100 and some odd people in the room, so I'm sure y'all are spread all over Atlanta. So we've got it pretty well covered. As far north up to Cumming, and then go down to Inman Park, and then out to the west side, out to Kennesaw as well. So we will take good care of you guys, and hopefully see some of you at a closing table. And I've dropped some of my cards up here. So if anybody's got any questions, if you have any legal questions, give me a shout, and I'll be happy to help. And I think I should defer back to you if y'all need to hand it over.
You don't have to if you want another minute or two.
No,
Okay.
I don't want to bore you guys too much.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I'm going to talk him up a little bit because he's not going to do it for himself. One of the most humble real estate investors that I know. I had the pleasure of getting lunch with Malhar a couple months ago. It's been too long since then, and hopefully we can get together again soon. Malhar has flipped over 300 houses and made millions of dollars doing it, so don't let him tell you otherwise. He's done incredible things. He has an unbelievable story, literally went from rags to riches, easily is worthy of being on the Bigger Pockets podcast himself. I don't know why you haven't been on there yet. It's probably because you haven't asked or put yourself out there. But his story is absolutely incredible, and there have been times where I've had a question where I didn't know what I was doing, or if I didn't know if something's a good deal. Malhar is someone that definitely does know. He knows in-town Atlanta real estate as well as anybody, and he has just done some incredible things. He's actually doing one thing right now that I hope to do one day. He's office hacking. So him and his wife built a house, and when they were building it, they were trying to figure out where his office was going to be, and he didn't want to pay for an office, and his wife wanted the house to just be theirs, and somehow he convinced her to have the bottom floor of their house be his office with all of his employees, and he lives upstairs, walks downstairs in his pajamas every day to work. So he's doing something right. I think we can all learn something from him. So I appreciate you being here. Looking forward to hearing your story.
Thanks, man. Hey guys, how you doing? I'm a pretty loud talker. Do I have to use this mic?
Yes.
Really? Well, let's try. Let's try without the mic. Can you guys in the back hear me? Can you guys in the back hear me? Yes? All right, good. I hate microphones because I'm a hand talker, so it allows me more space, right? Anyway, I used to be a rapper in my previous life as well. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, first off, thanks Vince for having me come talk to you guys. I have been in real estate for quite some time now, but it didn't all start out that way. I was talking to Vince, what would be valuable for you guys to kind of hear. So I'll briefly share my story, but more importantly, what I thought would be valuable for you guys to understand is how did I actually get to where I got to with little to no money, actually no money. All I had was good credit, and so what I did was I'll start with the story. back it up a little bit. So I graduated college in '04, and then I started working a job right out of college. And it taught me something very quickly, which was that I was undervalued, underappreciated, and underpaid, and I had no control of my time. And so as I started that job, I went to my boss, and one day I realized, hey, I'm getting paid half of what everyone else on my team is getting paid. Why? Because I was a newbie, I was just an entry level. So they were paying me, a decent salary for someone out of college. I think I was getting paid like 40 grand or something. And so I suppose that's pretty decent if you're coming right out of college, never had much money growing up. And so I found out about 9 months later that I was getting paid about half of what the rest of the team was getting paid. So I went up to my boss and I was like, listen, this doesn't jive well with me. I'm doing the same work as everyone else in this group, and I'm getting paid, half of what they're getting paid. So I graduated in computer science, so that's kind of what my function was. And so I went into the boss, and he gave me what I call the corporate answer. He said, Mulhar, you're entry level, you fit in this box, this is how much you get paid. Stay with us for 10 or 12 years, to me is a long ass time, excuse me. And so for me, I was like, no, that's not gonna work for me, right? So at the 10-month mark, March 2005, I quit my job, and I actually called my dad on the way home that same day. I called him up, I said, hey dad, I'm gonna come home and I wanna start living with mom and dad, and I wanna join you in your business. And so when I use the term business, I use that term lightly. My father, yes, he had his own business, but it was a one-man show. So he was always in it. If he stopped working, we stopped making money in our family, right? And so I joined him in his business in March of 2005, and here I was, this young, I think I was 23 at the time, and young 23-year-old, excited, ready to make his own way, pave his path into the future, make money, right? So I never grew up with money. There was a time in our lives where literally it was just like, I never grew up with money, long story short, all right? So it was often a struggle on a month-to-month basis. So here I was, this 23-year-old, ready to not just change my life, but change my entire family's life. So I'm out there, and we were in the wholesale diamond and jewelry business. I used to live in New York. And so that's what I got into. That's what my family was doing. And so for a couple of years, I started growing that business. And my father kind of let loose of the reins, because he said, here's this young 23-year-old, super excited about doing something that he can call his own. So he kind of let go of the reins and let me run. But what essentially started happening is I lost sight of the forest from the trees. And what happened, long story short, is I made certain decisions in that business that cost us everything. And when I say everything, I mean literally every single penny that my father had amassed as capital for the last 20 years at that point was wiped out. My father is a man with a lot of integrity. And so what he did was he would take a lot of their personal savings, assuming that he might be able to save the business. He started taking his personal savings and putting it into the business. Well, the hole that I had kind of created was so deep that there was no way we were going to get out of it, right? So it was, I remember this day like yesterday, literally. It is August 27, 2007. And I got a phone call from one of the clients that we had sold to. And wholesale diamonds and jewelry, just so you guys understand, is like, you could have a parcel of diamonds this small, which is worth like $100,000, right? And you just give it to someone, like a jewelry manufacturer, and it's unsecured credit. It's not like a house. They can't pick up a house and move it, right? So you can foreclose on a house, you can't foreclose on diamonds, right? So we had a significant amount of debt out in the marketplace, and so we were buying on 6-month terms, and then we were selling on 3-month terms. In theory, that makes sense, but as if you guys remember, what happened in late 2007, 2008 was the economy started collapsing, essentially. And so August 27, 2007, I was calling up one of our biggest clients, and I said, dude, it's been 5.5 months, 6 months. When are you gonna pay me? And he basically said in like this jokey voice, he's like, don't worry, Malhar, we got you. And I hung up the phone, and I knew in the pit of my stomach, it was all gone, right? Like, this guy is like playing, basically. So I called my dad up and I said, Dad, I think we're gonna get paid, it's all good. And he's like, he literally like grilled me on the conversation. He said, what happened? What was he saying on the other side? Well, he sounded like he was drinking and laughing. And I was like, so I had made up this whole story in my head that this guy's gonna pay me. And my dad's like, Malhar, like, it's gone. All of it's gone, right? And so by the age of 25, I found myself in $500,000 of debt that I didn't even have, right? So it was, for the next about 2 to 3 months, I was kind of putzing around, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, because there was no way I was going to keep staying in the diamond business. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. We had little hits here and there, 10,000 here, 20,000 there, but the big one was 282,000, right? So it all added up to about $500,000. So here I am, 25 years old, trying to figure out what the heck I'm going to do. We were literally at a point in our lives in September of 2007 where we didn't know, and I still live with my family, mom and dad, right? We literally didn't know how we were going to put food on the table or pay rent for the next month. And yeah, we were still renting an apartment, and I grew up in the same 2-bedroom apartment that we had moved to back in 1988 when I moved here from India, right? And so it was always my dream to go out there and accomplish something that would be not just impact my own life, but that of my parents, right, as well. And so that's kind of what happened in 2007, late 2007. And so for the next about 2-3 months, I'm trying to figure out, what am I gonna do? My mom is a very clean person, despite having an old raggedy apartment, right? She's a clean person. So the coffee table is empty. One day I come home and I'm sitting on the couch, and literally nothing sitting on the coffee table except these 2 free VIP tickets to, guess what? A real estate seminar, right? So here I am. I'm thinking to myself, maybe I should go to this. My mom's like, listen, like, this is the reason I left this out for you. Go, like, do something with your life. You're still young. You need to pull yourself out of this crap, right? And so I was like, all right, whatever, I'll go into New York City. So I was living in New Jersey at the time, and at my parents' place. So I go into New York City, right, and I crash on one of my friends' couches and go to this free real estate seminar. And how many of you, by a show of hands, have been to one of these real estate seminars? All right, so you guys have probably been through the whole, they work you, and then they're like, get your credit limits up on day 2, right? Get all your credit card limits up, and then on day 3, that's when they go for the sale, right? And so I was one of the gullible ones, all right? Plain and simple. I was one of the gullible ones. I went out there and I was like, this is gonna be it. This is gonna change my life, right? I'm gonna do this. Mind you, I was not asking anyone permission, because I knew if I made a phone call home to my parents, they were gonna be like, hell freaking no, right? Because we hardly have any money. Now you're about to go into another $40,000 in debt, right? And so that was Friday, Saturday, they worked me up, so I'm calling my credit card companies, and all of a sudden, I go from having maybe 15 to 20 grand of available credit to about $75,000 of available credit. I was like, that's pretty easy, right? And so on Sunday, there's this, they do the whole pitch, and they have a little appointment with me, and they're like, oh, this is very exclusive. We don't know if you can come into our program. And I'm like, nah, I want to be in your program. Come on, right? And so what do? I end up buying the thing, right? So now I am a 25-year-old with $540,000 in debt, right? So not just half of them. And so I enrolled in one of those programs, right? And so Vince was actually asking me this question a little bit earlier, which was, how many people do you think actually spent that type of money and never did it, right? And never became successful at this business? And I said, you know what? Honestly, it's probably something greater than 90%, right? And that the reason I believe that that's true, and this is one of my first biggest takeaways in my life, was I sat at the back of that room after I spent $40,000 that I didn't have, and literally one of the furthest back seats, right? And this was a huge New York City conference room at like, I don't know, I remember, it was just Sheraton, right? In a huge room, I'm sitting in the back, and like I'm watching this speaker speak, and like tears just start rolling down my eyes. And I thought to myself, internally, I don't know if it was God, higher power, whatever you guys believe in, the universe. And for me, what it was I knew. I knew before I made my first dollar in real estate, without a shadow of a doubt, that this was going to be the way that I was going to be able to pull me and my family out of like the hardship, the financial hardship that we were in. So my first thing that I would say to you guys is decide, right? Decide that you're going to make this business what you want to make it, right? And thereafter, and only thereafter, does the action follow. Because if you really don't believe you can do this, you might as well get out of this meetup right now, right? And that was my first big takeaway in my life. As I reflected back on it, I was like, wow, I knew I was going to be a millionaire in real estate. The universe just had to catch up to me, right? So I knew that this is my path. So in 2008 is when I started doing real estate. So just like everyone else's journey, everyone has a journey, right? So my first deal was right as the market was crashing. And so for the first month, I kind of learned, I went to a boot camp, right? It was called the foreclosure boot camp or something like that. Foreclosures were big back then, as you guys may or may not know. And so I go to this boot camp, learn how to invest in properties that are not necessarily local, but out of state, in areas or markets that might have more inventory available. So what I ended up doing is I started just, I studied a few markets based off of the criteria they gave me, right? So go online, figure out the median home sales price, median days on market, etc. Figure out what those markets are, and they gave us a few markets to look at. So the very first market that I got involved in while I was living in New Jersey still was Charlotte, North Carolina. So I started placing a few offers, you know. Actually, the way that first happened was I was scared crapless to place any offers, right? Because I was like, I have no money, I have no exit strategy, I have no contractors. Oh, and this property that I might potentially get is 1,000 miles away, right? So I had 10 offers written up, but I was hesitant to send them out. So I had written them, I think, like early January. I have this weird memory that tends to remember a lot of random stuff, like dates. So I had written up like 10 offers, but I had never sent them out. And I had joined this program, so I had spent the money, and then I called my sister up, and I was like, hey, you gotta join me in doing this. And she was like, I'm not sure, like, I wanna get into debt with you about this. And so I was like, no, Dad's gonna make me return it if you don't join, so you gotta join. And literally, I would call her 3 or 4 times a day. Have you made a decision? Have you made a decision? Right? And so ultimately, she was like, yeah, you know, let's try it out, right? So I got to split that $40,000 of debt. She didn't pay me right away because she didn't have a lot of money either back then. And so I was carrying the debt load. Anyway, so I write 10 offers. She goes out to learn it at like one of these field trainings where, you know, you fly into a city, 5 to 10 people, and they teach you how to kind of write offers, analyze properties, etc. So hers was like a couple of weeks later. She writes these offers, and she calls me up that evening, and she's like, I wrote 10 offers. I'm going to send them out tomorrow. And I was like, screw that. Like, I wrote mine first. I'm going to send mine out, right? And so the next day, literally in the morning, I go up to a fax machine. Yeah, fax machine. Because that's how I guess I was taught. We weren't doing emails back then. Email and online was not as capable as it is now back then. So I go to a fax machine. So my dad has this old fax machine. I put in, like, program the phone numbers that need to go out, and I send out 10 offers. And so I closed the door and I locked it from the inside, and I didn't have the key to the door, so I wouldn't freak myself out and pull them off the fax machine. So guess what happened? What do you guys think happened after I sent out 10 offers? Nothing, absolutely nothing. No one called me, no one emailed me, no one faxed me back, nothing, right? So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool, you know, nothing happened, so I can keep on doing this, right? So it was like the last week of January. So I'm like, 10 offers, nothing happens. Now I've ripped the Band-Aid off. I can go out and now start writing offers, right? So now I start writing offers, 20 offers, nothing. 30 offers, nothing. 40 offers, nothing. 50 offers, nothing. And around 60, 70 offers, nothing. I'm like, holy crap, I'm in $40,000 of debt right now, and this stuff is not working, you know? It's pretty cool, the whole concept, you know? Find a house like this and then place an offer, right? No, that was not working for me. So I'm like, all right, what do I do? I don't really know what to do, so what do? I just keep writing offers. That's all I did. I just wrote offer after offer after offer. It took me 120 offers before I got my very first deal, right? So if you guys come up to me and you tell me, we've been at this for about a year, my next question to you is going to be, how many offers have you written? And if it's anything less than 120, I don't want to hear it, right? Straight. Why? Because the first thing that I said to you guys is decide, right? Decide that you're going to be successful at this and put in the work, right? Put in the work. And so 120 offers later, I'm just sharing with you guys my first deal because it had so many freaking hiccups in it, it's not even funny. So 120 offers, I get my first deal. We send out a inspector, he inspects it. We had to find a hard money lender, right? Because I didn't have any money and nobody was gonna lend me any money at that time. So I'm looking for a hard money lender, but this was 2008, ladies and gentlemen, and a lot of hard money lenders were going belly up. No one was lending at the time. How many of you, by a show of hands, were around in real estate 2008? Okay, so you guys can probably attest to the fact that there were very minimal, if any, hard money lenders out there, yes? Yeah. So I was hardly finding any hard money lenders, and so I happened to find one hard money lender. And they were willing to give me money on the deal. And they actually asked me, they're like, the bank accepted what for this? They were based in Charlotte. So I was still based in New Jersey, and they're like, how are you gonna manage all this? I said, don't worry, I've learned a system. I'm gonna use this system that I know, right? And so they're like, yeah, okay, sounds good. If you're gonna take this property back, it's a pretty good deal, right? And so my very first loan was 6 points and 15% interest, right? So, and these days, the hard money lenders are not, I mean, they're a lot lower than that, right? These days, even if you're a newbie, you could probably get like 3 and 13 or 3 and 12. So my very first loan was 6 points, 15%, and I still needed to come up with 20%. So this wasn't a high-priced property, but $10 was high price for me at the time, right? So I think it was like $52,000 or $53,000, so I still had to come up with about $10,000. So remember I told you I raised my credit limits to about $60,000 or $70,000, right? So what do? I went to my good old uncle MasterCard, right? And so I learned about this strategy called a balance transfer, which you can actually take available credit and move it into a checking account, right? So that's exactly what I did, right? So I utilized credit card money for my down payment and then got a hard money loan. I feel like, so we went under contract in March of 2008, but the bank was dragging their feet. I feel like someone in their asset management department made a mistake and they had a property for $89,900. It was listed for $89,900 and I locked it up for $52,000. Like, this is the type of offers I was putting out, right? And I think someone in their asset management department made a mistake because the bank was trying to make all these reasons as to why they couldn't close, and I was like, no way. I grabbed on, I'm like, no way. Y'all need to close, you need to honor your contract. I was talking like this big game, had $0 in my pocket. I'm like, I'm gonna sue you if you don't like honor the contract you signed, right? Because I've, 120 freaking offers, right? And so the bank drags its heels for literally all the way until June. So we were under contract for 3 months, all right? And so it was a Friday. Go figure, it was Friday the 13th now that I think about it. June 13th, it was a Friday in 2008. You guys can look it up. And so I had found some contractors according to the system that they showed me. Call contractors, ask them these questions, qualify them, check their references, blah, 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 right? So did all that, got one contractor to commit to doing the scope of work. Now the scope of work for this house, guys, was so minimal. Literally, we were gonna change the carpet and paint it. Actually, we weren't gonna change the carpet. We were gonna just paint it, clean the carpet and paint it, and some handyman repairs, right? The scope of work was literally $7,000 or $8,000. So we find a contractor that's ready to do this. He's talking a huge game. I send him the contracts that I've learned. These are the contracts you use to hire a contractor, right? So I'm following everything by the book that they taught me. I send the guy the contract, calling him up on Wednesday, no response. Thursday, sending him emails, calls, no response. Friday, we close on the property, right? We closed on Friday, and I'm like, this guy is not calling me back, right? He still doesn't call me back at like 9 p.m. I get an email from him saying, hey Mohar, good luck to you, but I don't think I'm gonna be able to do the job, right? So here I am now, just signed a loan for $52,000 plus $8,000, right? So about 60 grand that I don't have, and now I don't have a contractor. Oh, and the property is still in Charlotte, right? So it's still 1,000 miles away, and so I'm like, what the heck do I do? So what do? The following week, I'm like, all right, well, I got no choice. I literally pull out MasterCard again, right? Maybe Visa. Swipe, and I fly down there the next week, right? And I'm like, okay, now I'm just gonna figure this out. So I land in Charlotte, and now I'm basically going out and creating meetings with new contractors. So I ended up meeting about like 6 or 7 contractors during that week, and found someone who I actually was able to hold their feet to the fire and sign the contract right then and there. And that's kind of how it went. So we rehabbed the property, and there's this FHA 90-day anti-flip rules some of you guys might be familiar with. So this was a low-price property. We were going to market it for about $100,000. And so we marketed it for 100 grand. Literally an $8,000 budget, guys, takes about 8 days, 10 days tops, right? So here I am putting it right back out on the market, and this house wasn't moving quite as fast as I hoped it would, just because that's where the market was at the time, right? This is before, or right before like Lehman collapse. Lehman Brothers, I think, collapsed in September or October of 2008. This was right before Lehman collapsed, so there was not like, everyone knew stuff's hitting the fan, but there wasn't like this massive, bang that collapsed yet. So the market was kind of slow, and so we sat on the market for like 2 or 3 weeks, and then we get an offer. We get an offer from some FHA buyer, right? And I'm excited. I'm like, holy crap! I'm actually gonna make money on this thing. And so FHA buyer and this real estate agent who was a little bit older, set in her ways. And so I told her, hey, I can't close on this property until whatever it was, end of September or something like that. Whatever 90 days from June 13th was, right? Mid-September or something like that. And so I said, I won't be able to close until after the 90 days because of the FHA situation. So she said, well, you know, my client really needs to move in. So I said, all right, fine, why don't I do this? I'll let them move in, but I just need like a 1 month rent, non-refundable deposit, right? And she said, in my 30 years of investing or real estate agency, I've never heard of something ludicrous like this. I was like, well, there's a first time for everything, right? And so reluctantly, she got her clients to agree. So the client moves in, which I would never recommend anymore. Moves in like early September, and then we actually had to sign a new contract on day 91 before we could close. So we ended up closing in like early October. And so that was my very first deal. It had its hiccups. When I was going through it, it wasn't as pleasant as the story I just told you. But we ended up making $18,923.12. And you'll always remember your first. And so that's when I realized, I was like, holy crap, like if I could replicate this over and over again, like maybe we can pull ourselves out of this financial debacle that I've essentially created. And so from 2008 onwards, kind of 2008 to 2011, that's when I started doing more real estate. But I didn't really see, I knew how to do a deal, but I didn't know how to build a business out of it. So I was spinning my wheels, I wasn't really getting anywhere. And so that's when my parents kind of sat down with me. They're like, listen, Maury, you're working your tail off. You're working literally 7 in the morning to like 11 at night and hardly getting any results with this. I mean, I'd flip a property here or there, but you know, making $20,000 or $30,000 in living in a market like New Jersey was not the easiest to live on. So my parents said, you're college educated, why don't you just go back into the corporate world and get a job? So as I am stubborn as heck, I said, okay, I could do that. Or, you know what it is? It's education. I need more education. So what happens in 2010? I go to another free seminar, right? And so I'm thinking to myself, man, it's education. I need to go invest another $20,000 so I learn how to do this the right way, right? So that's what I did. I still had debt, still making minimum payments. In October of 2010, I invested in another real estate coaching program, right? So I'm thinking to myself, all right, now it's gonna happen, right? Now it's gonna happen. So, and that program actually did make it work. And it wasn't the program, it was a shift in my mindset. See, what I was doing from 2008 to 2010 was, I grew up, when you grow up with not a lot of money, the number one thing you think about cutting is what? Costs, cut expenses, right? So that's what I thought about doing. That's how I grew up. That's what I learned in my life, was keep cutting expenses. So the number one expense that I kept cutting in my business was the big M word, which is marketing, right? So I was cutting off my marketing every single time. I was like, oops, I'm out of money, so I can't market anymore. That's the first place I would go. And so I stopped marketing. In 2011, the switch that I made in my mind was that marketing is not an expense, Dodo. It's an investment, right? And if you do it consistently, you will get deals. And that's the second thing that I would share with you guys is it's all about leads. I don't give a crap about a deal, all right? I don't care about any house, wherever it is. Like people will call me up, they're like, Muller, I got this great deal for you. Okay, great, where's the address? What's the numbers? How can we get into it? And do you have any pictures, right? Those are generally my 4 questions. And I sometimes won't even ask for access until I have those 3, right? Address, what do you want for it, and the pictures. I don't care what your rehab number is because frankly, I now know what our rehab numbers and rehab costs are. And so, where the hell was I going with this? Sorry. Typically, what we'll do in our office is that we won't qualify a property. We won't ever get into our car and go look at a property unless on paper the deal starts making a little bit of sense, right? And the first question we'll ask is, do you have any flexibility? Because at the end of the day, there's 99% of the deals I've done, I've always negotiated, right? And so the number 2 thing that I would suggest you guys really concentrate on as you build your business is leads. We pull in anywhere from 400 to 500 leads a month, right, through our marketing. And we never used to be that way, but we got that way, right? And so this is why you can care less about, you know, Mrs. Susan's house or Mrs. Judy's house or Mr. Smith's house, right? Here's the deal. I'm not saying don't understand and work with and be compassionate about their situation. What I'm saying is understand their situation. If you can genuinely help the seller out, then go ahead and do so. At the same time, if it's not profitable to you to buy that deal, perhaps refer them to a listing agent. I'm a realtor solely, I've never listed a single property. I'm a realtor solely for the fact that I can refer leads out to people to list their properties. If I can't help them, someone else might be able to, and now I can go ahead and take a 25% referral fee or 33% or whatever I'm able to work out with those agents, right? That's the only reason I'm a licensed real estate agent. Okay? Do I believe that's effective in my business? Yeah, because I always try to monetize as many leads as I can. If we're bringing in 400 to 500 leads a month, we have a certain cost structure that is substantial. So I have to make sure, yeah, maybe we don't do a $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 deal off of this lead, but maybe I can turn it into a $2,000 referral check, right? Which will help pay for next month's marketing. So the number two, and probably I would even say the top thing that we do in our business is we bring in leads. That's it. If you can master that one thing in your business, you will be extremely successful in this business, period. It's just leads, that's it. So like, there's a certain road that I know Stan has a bunch of properties on Richland, right? And he's always asking me, he's like, did you buy this house on Richland and that house on Richland? I'm negotiating another one on that street as well. Anyway, Stan really likes it because Stan owns a bunch of properties in that neighborhood, right? And he bought them at like the low of the market. So I tell him some of these prices that I'm buying at, and he thinks I'm crazy, right? But at the same time, understand this, understand the market, right? So when someone calls me up, I was talking to Mark, right? Is it Mark? Hunter, my bad. I'm sorry. Hunter. So I was talking to Hunter earlier, and he said he had a deal in the neighborhood that I work, right? And so I immediately, the next question I asked you, Hunter, was what street, right? And where exactly is it? As soon as he told me what street, he didn't give me the entire address because he hasn't put it under contract yet. I respect that. Also, all of these are number one things. Have integrity in this business, guys, because this community is not that large. The real estate investment community of people that are actually consistently doing deals is not that large. If you screw someone over, like, it's gonna get out there, all right? So I asked him, you know, what street is it on? I already know what houses exist on that street, what more than likely the ARV is gonna be, etc., right? So he was telling me, okay, he's thinking about tearing it down and building a new construction over there. So I already know what the pricing for new construction is in that area. I didn't check my phone, I didn't check the area at all. The big thing is, a lot of people, they'll go all over Georgia, right? I don't believe in that. We work the 20 corridor, east side, west side. That's it. And we're like really, really well versed on the east side of in-town Atlanta along the 20 corridor. So when an agent or a wholesaler calls me up or texts me or texts someone on our team, hey, I got a property at XYZ address, I want $70,000 for it, I already know what's more than likely going to be the ARV and what type of house am I dealing with. People, when builders built in and around Atlanta, much of the same house was built over and over and over again, slightly different in the same neighborhoods. So when I talk to you about this street on Richland, most of those houses on that street are from 900 square feet to about 1,400 or 1,500 square feet. I'm dealing with typically framed ranches that are going to need a full gut renovation because they've never been updated. So I already know what my cost structure is. That's another tip. Track everything. We literally have down to a science How many leads lead to a contract? How many contracts lead to a deal? How many phone calls we need to make? How much each lead costs? How much each deal costs? You can't improve something unless you track it. So start while you're newer, or even, maybe you've been doing this for a while. If you haven't been tracking, start tracking. We track everything from marketing to rehabbing. I'm a numbers guy. I like process. I suck at creating the systems, but I'm really good at understanding where the problems exist and how we can fix them. So I'm not great at tracking all this, but guess what? We brought on someone who can work those systems, right? So we track literally, we know what an addition costs us, we know what a new construction costs us, we know what a gut reno costs us, cosmetic rehabs down to basically $1 per square foot, right? Based on what we're doing. The other thing that we've systemized really well is most of our houses look very similar. These days, we put white shaker cabinets, hardwood floors in the markets that we work in, certain stainless steel appliance packages, etc., and we stage all of our houses. We follow a very specific system, which has allowed us to flip 300 houses successfully. We've lost money on how many deals out of those 300? 3, right? And so that's a pretty good ratio, I would say, right? With that said, I'm not saying that you want to always have a perfect score. Understand it's real estate. Sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose, right? And you want to make sure your wins are far greater than the losses. But guess what? Sometimes you get your butt whooped a little bit. I've been there where a contractor has walked off the job. I've been there where I fronted 20 grand to a contractor and he disappeared, right? I've been there where literally the contractor put a brand new foundation in on a new construction house and it did not follow the plans, and literally I did not find out until my framing crew was there, and they're calling me up and they're like, the framing is not on top of the foundation. And so I'm like, what the, right? Like, so you gotta learn on the fly. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but guess what? I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna figure this out, right? And so that's the other thing. If you don't like problems, you might as well get out of real estate. Because every single day, you're solving problems. You're dealing with issues that are coming up. So with sellers, you have to be creative about solutions, right? We had, today I was just talking about one seller that all of a sudden, she agreed to a certain price, and now she's calling our acquisitions person saying, well, I went online and I noticed that the property's value, Zillow, is 210, and I kind of feel like I'm giving it away at 130,000, right? And I'm like, so I'm not doing the talking. I'm actually empowering our acquisitions team to have this conversation, right? So I'm telling them, all right, go back to why the heck they're selling, right? Why are they selling? So that if you can actually understand and connect them to why they're selling, you can maintain the price that we have the contract for. Now, I'm a firm believer that I don't like to mess with litigation and things like that, but if you're in this business long enough, occasionally, at times, you'll come across stuff like that. I don't like to sue sellers, though, is what I'm saying, right? If a seller wants out of a contract, I'm going to try to work with them, but at the end of the day, if they think they can do something better, fine. That's not a big deal. You know why? Because I got more leads coming, right? And that's what I keep talking about. Leads, leads, leads. That's like literally, I can't emphasize that enough, right? It is literally the most important thing that our business does every single day. It brings in leads. So that's that. And then, going back to my story, sometimes I go scatterbrained, right? But going back to my story, so 2011, after that mindset switch, we made more money in 2011 in our real estate investing business than my family had made over the last 7 years combined. Real estate investing literally changed my life. That's why I'm so passionate about talking about it and sharing with people what it is I've learned. Now, like I said, I haven't been perfect. There was a deal that was $1 million deal that we did. I was super stoked, excited about it. We're gonna make like $250,000 on this deal. But guess what? I didn't do my due diligence on it. And I thought, I'm gonna tear this property down in the city of Decatur and I'm gonna build a brand new house. But what I didn't realize was that there was something called an FAR, floor area ratio. And what that meant was, if I tear this house down, I can't put a 4,000 square foot McMansion on this property. I can only do a 3,000 square foot McMansion. Which means that my $1 million ARV just went down to 750,000. Do you think that my buy price would change if that happens?
Yep.
Yeah, right? Well, guess what? I already bought it, right? So that's when I had to get creative and figure out what the heck I was gonna do. The worst thing in the world is doing a deal that you know you're gonna lose money on. I hate that, right? I hate that because I'm in the middle of the deal and I'm like, shoot. Now I gotta do all of this work, not just me, but our team has to do all of this work because I was stupid and I didn't, not stupid, but uneducated, and I didn't maybe make a phone call to someone who might have done something similar, or did my due diligence a little bit better, or had a system. Guess what happened after that? We always check the zoning rules, right? When we're gonna tear down a house. Like we improved our system. But that deal was our biggest loss ever. We lost $80,000 on that deal, right? And that was, I used to look at that, and my wife, who is now our GC, she's a licensed GC, and so she runs all of our construction. My wife took it real hard. She was like, we put so much time, effort, energy into it, mostly her, right, into this deal, and here's how beautiful this house looks, and now we're gonna lose $80,000 on it. And that's when I was able to talk to her and teach her this lesson, which was essentially cut your freaking losses, right? If I kept holding on to that property longer, I probably would not be in business anymore, right? But luckily for me, I can reflect on the fact that that deal did not take us down, because it would take down a lot of investors. But we were able to recover, and as a result of that deal, we made a switch in our business model. And what we started doing was, we were mostly calling ourselves rehabbers. We're rehabbers, we're builders, blah, 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 look at us, right? And so that's such a glorified piece of real estate. Everyone's like, oh, I want to do rehabbing because you get to put out a cool product. Here's what I realized at that time. I realized I'm not a rehabber. I'm a real estate investor, right? And that's when, this was about 3 years ago now, that's when we started saying to ourselves, you know what, screw that. We're not rehabbers. We'll do rehab deals. We'll still do new construction deals, but we're real estate investors. And we started wholesaling a lot more. Why? Because you need cash flow. And that's something else that I would share with you guys. Profits are cool, but cash flow is king. All right? Because I know a lot of rehabbers that talk about, oh, we're doing 40 deals right now at a time. I'm like, that's awesome, man. Well, if the market were to turn, you would probably get your ass whooped, right? Plain and simple. And so yeah, maybe you're doing 40 deals at a time, but if you don't have the cash flow to get to payday, all 40 are going to be lost. And that's something that I realized, because and I told you about that $80,000 loss. Here's the lesson from that, and here's what the situation actually was. We were doing 3 million plus properties and 12 other regular rehabs. And regular rehabs for us are full-on gut renovations in markets that are $300,000 to $600,000 ARVs. So we had a lot of money out there. We literally had $12,000 in the bank account, and I was like freaking out. I was lucky enough to call up one of my private lenders and say, listen man, I need $400,000 and I need to borrow it from you unsecured. And I told him, I'm growing, right? So I need some money, right? And so what he said to me was like, listen, I've known you for a while, I've watched you for a while, and we started doing a couple of deals. I'm gonna bet on you, right? You figure this crap out, right? And pay me the agreed upon interest rate. It was still, I didn't change anything. I told him I'll still pay you the 12%. It's unsecured, but I need this capital right now. Otherwise, it's gonna be a bad situation, right? And so that $400,000 got me out, and I realized this big thing: cash flow is king, right? And that is ultimately the most important thing as you start managing multiple renovation projects at a time. That if you can't get to payday, payday doesn't matter, right? That's why we started wholesaling a lot more properties. Now our business focuses on wholesaling, right? We do quite a few wholesales every single month now. We rehab properties as well, build new construction as well, do a little bit of development. We're building some townhomes. We like a lot of the east side markets. We do like the west side along 20 corridor as well. Everything else, we wholesale, right? So I won't go to Smyrna to do a renovation or Norcross to do a renovation. I'll just wholesale those. Why? Because it's about proximity for us. If all of our projects are nearby, then our crews can jump to those projects a lot faster, right? And so we couldn't beat the contractors, so what we ultimately decided is we're gonna join them, right? So my wife became a licensed GC, and she runs all of our construction as well. So that's a little bit about me. I don't know if that brought you guys any value. I hope it did. And yeah, if you guys have any questions or concerns, come see me afterward. I'd love to share. Oh, one last thing is at the back of that room, back in 2008, when I had tears rolling down my eyes, I saw the speaker in front of the room. And I was like, you know what? One day I'm gonna be that speaker, right? And about 5 years ago, the second real estate investing company that I joined as a student, I became a speaker and a trainer for them. That was about 5 years ago. I left them about a year ago simply because I was traveling quite a bit, and I was like, I want to stay in Atlanta. Like Vince said, yeah, we office hacked. We built our own house in the location we wanted. We live in town, we work in town, we play in town. So we built a modern house, 3 stories. I had a very long laundry list of all the things I wanted. I wanted a income suite. I'm an investor, right? Of course, I want to be able to rent out a mother-in-law suite or something like that. I wanted my office to be in there, and I wanted to live there. Why? Because I believe in lifestyle by design. The reason I got into real estate is for my freedom. So I was not going to go get in my car and travel to an office, right? I figured, okay, let's figure out a way to build our house legally and just put our offices in there. And that's what we did. So from the outside, it looks like a normal house, 3 stories, has a garage. The garage is on the 1st level, but the 2nd and 3rd floor is where we live. And then the garage on the inside is actually heated and cooled space. So we can easily convert it back into a garage when we want to sell the property, right? And because I'm an investor, my companies pay me rent for renting my house, right? And then the back unit, now we had it rented, short-term rental type of thing, but we needed that space because our company was growing. So we just opened up a wall and we created more office space over there. I'm still holding on to this idea of staying in my house as an office, but we are starting to outgrow it a little bit. But regardless, we can still have a satellite office over there and another main office. But my point is, if you guys really want this, you can build it out however you want. And that's something that I'm still learning right now. I'm involved in masterminds around the country. I get to go to a lot of different events and talk to and work with some really high level people that are flipping 200, 300, 400 houses a year. And then I always looked at them and I was like, man, I'm doing like 50, 70 houses, like I'm nothing, right? And like I realized, I was like, you know what? They're working their tail off, and I'm here. Like tomorrow, I fly out for 2 weeks. I'm going to Argentina, right? It's lifestyle by design. Do you is what I'm trying to say, right? Don't be like me. Be you, right? And figure out what that means for you. Create the lifestyle that you guys want, and honestly and sincerely, that's my hope and wish for you guys. So thank you very much for listening to me, and hopefully this brought you guys a lot of value.
Wait, one really good question. Hold on. How many of you would have the question of, holy shit, that's an amazing story. Where do I start? How many of you have that question? Put them up if you have that question. If you want to know where to start. What would you say to those people that are like, what do I do?
What do I do? Where do I start?
Let's say you
23-year-old again, entry-level job, entry-level salary, knowing all that you do right now, what's your first step to get from your millions?
So, I think, I'm kind of long-winded, so please forgive me for that. So here's what I believe.
2019.
What's that?
In
In 2019. Fair enough, fair enough. Here's what I would say. The struggle that I had was not an impediment to my journey. I look at it now as a gift, right? So me going through that made me have to claw my way out, right? So if you were entry level, you're starting out right now in 2019, say you have a salary of $36,000, what I would do my hardest to do is start doing work for a real estate investor, someone who you know is profitable in this area or in this industry, and mentor under them, work for them for free. I get so many messages from people, they're like, I'll work for you for free. And then I had one come in for an interview and he's like, I know I said I'll work for you for free, but like, I mean, like, what are you gonna offer me? I'm like, bro, like, see you later, right? Like, I'm not hiring right now. But my point is, find that person, work for them for free during your free time. Even if it's like, go drive for dollars, right? Go hand out flyers in the neighborhood because we have an upcoming listing. Anything, right? Just so that you can start developing that relationship. The second thing I would say is minimize your expenses as heavily as possible and try to save up 1 year's worth of living expenses, okay? And then quit, all right? So I didn't have that choice because I didn't have 1 year's worth of living expenses, but luckily for me, I had good credit and credit cards, right? And so I'm completely debt-free outside of my house now, which is really cool, but I didn't start that way. So that's what my suggestion would be. If you're really gonna take it up a notch and you're willing to put yourself out on a limb, make sure that you're very clear that you're gonna take the action necessary, right? So does that provide some clarity about how to start to you? Who asked the question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so if I were to start all over again and I had a job, I would save 1 year's worth of expenses and then I would quit. Yeah.
Mahar, you mentioned you're debt-free. Is that on the personal side or is that on the
Oh yeah, that's
business
personal
too?
side. No, business is like, yeah, leverage. I mean, I'm an immigrant, right? I love this country for many reasons. One of the primary ones being the available credit, right? I would not be where I am today because if it hadn't been for credit that's available, right? Credit cards, I mean, lines of credit, hard money loans, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's so easy to get out here, right? But yeah, business-wise, we got plenty of debt, yeah.
Well, I know you said you have about 400 or 500 leads coming in. How many do you pull down to get that 500? What is like your monthly marketing budget?
So monthly, we're spending about 15 grand. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit more, depending on if we want to scale up, scale down, right? So we're spending about 15. I want to get to a point where we're spending about 80 to 100. But what happens when you're spending money like that is you start exhausting the amount of leads available in the Metro Atlanta market. So rather than me going all the way to North Georgia or like way down South Georgia, what we're looking at is I love the Southeast in general as a region of the U.S. Largely because you got warmer weather and the cost of living is way lower. And this is why I moved myself and my family down to Atlanta. I really believe in Atlanta. Otherwise, I want to put all my eggs in this basket. But I also look at growth markets, like markets that I'm already looking at. I'll share with you guys. Greenville, South Carolina is on the rise. Birmingham, Huntsville. I believe, like I said, in the Southeast. So I'm probably going to stick in these parts and expand at least our wholesaling operation to other markets. Yeah. Go ahead.
How many offers do you send out a week? And do you have your guys actually going out there and negotiating with the homeowner, or is it like sending it over you?
Yeah, so we have a system now where I refuse to really get into a car for me or my team. Why? Because it wastes time. So we're typically on average sending out in the vicinity of about 250 offers a month, so on half of the leads. Like I said, here's the thing, develop thick skin, right? I don't care if a seller curses us out, right? Who cares, right? That's not the seller for me, but guess what? The next one might be the seller for me.
What's
right?
the technology you're using to send out offers?
So we use Podio, but we actually created our own Podio. We hired a Podio consultant that created a lot of automation for us. We spent some money to do that, and then we have a tool called Web Merge, which like with it costs money, but with a couple of clicks, like we literally in the Podio app for this seller, let's say, we'll put in offer price 50,000, 10 days due diligence, 20-day close, whatever it might be. We click a button and it automatically docu-signs it and sends it to the seller.
Okay, a lot of sellers will let you set offers on platforms that like my offers. So how do you get around that?
So that's the thing. So knowing your market, right? So oftentimes, we'll look at the age of the house. We'll look at, is it brick? Is it frame?
So what I'm saying is like that individual property, like agents or sellers will like you turn off. They don't.
Oh, they don't allow it.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, so those are typically MLS listings, and if it's an MLS listing, then like I said, I'm a real estate agent. We have a real estate agent in our office who also does acquisitions for us. So she'll go out to look at it.
Okay, somebody
Yeah,
else will.
she'll hit the lockbox
Are
basically.
there other things you have? There were like 2 or 3 main tools that you had. Were you using social media? Like what are?
So yeah, so on social media, I've gotten some leads through social media. We don't hire a third party to do it. So we have cold callers, like virtual assistants that make cold calls for us. We do ringerless voicemail, RVM. We also do direct mail. I get speaking engagements like once a month, and I always tell people, add us to your buyers list, deals@m2rest.com, right? And that's our email where we literally get like 20 to 30 wholesalers sending us leads, and that doesn't include the 4,500. The 4,500 leads are self-generated leads. Other leads that come in from wholesalers are like about 20 a day. Most of those, as you guys have been around the market, are not always deals, right?
Yeah, thanks. Now, when that switch first slipped in your head and you realized that marketing was the key there, how did you kind of develop that engine? Where did you start there?
So when I flipped the switch, how did I develop the engine of marketing? It was just a little at a time. My first budget, guys, for marketing was like $150, right? And then you build off of that. So that's a big thing. Up until literally November of 2017, I was driving around a 2000 Honda CR-V that was like beat up as heck, right? Why? Because I got it for $5,000, right? When I moved to Atlanta, the first week I got robbed, right? Literally broke into my house because I lived in downtown Atlanta. They stole all of our computers and our TVs. We still didn't have a ton of money back then, right? And I'm like, crap, now I gotta like go buy more computers and stuff. My point is, like, you start where you start, right? My journey is my journey. Make it $100. If it's zero, it's zero, right? Here's the thing, you're gonna have to expend one thing or the other, time or money. You decide. For me, I'm okay spending X amount of dollars because it gives me a 4X return in a given month, right? Or 5X return or 10X, whatever I'm shooting for. If your cost is, if you can afford $0, the fact that you can be here, you probably have enough money to put gas in your car, get in it, and drive around, right? Drive around and find those vacant properties. You can go on a free website. You don't need this skip trace software, right? Once you have some money, you can make those investments. But you can go to a free website like truepeoplesearch.com, and you'll get probably about 50 to 60% of the phone numbers, right? And then the point is not resources, it's resourcefulness, right? And if you're resourceful, you'll be able to find leads on a consistent basis. Yeah.
So Mohan,
You say the cash flow is king. Do you always flip or you rehab and rent it out to create a cash flow? What's your strategy? On
We do
that?
both. We do a lot of rehabbing and flipping. We do a lot of wholesaling as well. But as I've been learning over time, you know, it sucks for taxes. So we do own quite a few rentals, and we're looking to expand our rental portfolio as well. So we're starting to consider build to rent also. And I'm an in-town guy, so I love in-town Atlanta. I believe in in-town Atlanta, and I just recently read an article that said that in Atlanta, in 20 years, our population is going to double. So, what do you think that's going to happen to the property prices? Right now, I'm like telling my wife, I'm like, should we flip this? Like, maybe we should keep this. Maybe we should keep this. She's like, we can't keep everything, you know. So you want to like eventually develop cash flow, but when I say cash flow, I mean cash flow in your bank account. Zero is no longer zero to me in my bank account. Like once I hit a certain threshold in my bank account, I start early thinking about, okay, now what's my cash flow projection? Am I going to be able to move through these projects? What's coming in, et cetera, et cetera. Let me take a minute.
So I'm a total newbie, but I'm interested in a very high targeted area. There's part of Avondale, it's all scrap yards and pavement. That's starting to change really fast.
Yep.
Right now, I'm not seeing anything for sale. So I mean, as a one-man shop, how do I start cracking that?
What, as in houses?
Just
for
like
sale?
looking for leads, looking for something for sale. I mean, where to start?
Expand your area. Scottsdale's on fire right now. I just bought a tax deed in Scottsdale. Scottsdale is right next to Avondale Estates, so is Clarkston. Clarkston is probably one of the still most affordable areas, semi in town. I think it's in town, which is nearby. And yeah, maybe the crime's a little bit higher over there, but you still can find opportunities over there, right? So like when he says a neighborhood like Avondale, like I know it because I know my market, right? So study your market is the other thing I would say, right? Find those spots. Because a lot of people, what they're doing in Scottsdale is they're tearing down these old houses and building new construction over there. So that you might be able to flip some contracts, wholesale contracts.
All right, we have to move to the next
All right, yeah,
section
yeah.
of tonight.
Sorry, I could keep going.
Yeah.